Hello and welcome to Shite Talk, an Irish history podcast. My name's Kevin Larney, and this week I told Jason the story of George McElroy, a gun-slinging, fighting, salty son of a gun from Donnybrook, County Dublin. And that's pretty much it. And that's it for an intro. I hope you enjoyed the Vietnamese episode that was out earlier in the week. We're going to try and do a few more of those over the next few months with different guests. And lots of people have been subscribing to the Patreon, which is class. And for anyone who doesn't want to commit to a subscription to anything, there's always the one-off payments over on Buy Me a Coffee. That's still going. I don't think we've plugged that in a while, but yeah. The other thing I noticed the other day is that Spotify has a rating system now, or probably has had for the last while, and they just never copped on. But you can rate podcasts on Spotify, so why don't you just fucking do that? Don't send us any money, just send us 5 stars, and then that's better than cash, somehow, I think. It's validation. We'd only spend the money on stars anyway. But yeah, that's it. Here's this week's episode about George McElroy, the Flying Ace.
Gather around now, you're in for a story. Old tales of lore, all in search of a glory. The history and mystery of lads, lasses and all. Discoveries and voyages, the rise and the fall. Follow me now as we go back in time. We trace the steps of Irish heritage to find. Joseph from Carlisle and Cavan and Dog guide you through the ways of Shite.
On the 14th of May, 1893, George Edward Henry McElroy was born to Samuel and Ellen McElroy in Pembroke East in Dublin. They were a middle-class Church of Ireland family living in what would have been like rural Dublin at the time, but is now known as Donnybrook. His parents ran a small school there beside the River Dodder, and George was the first of 8 children, all of whom survived infancy. Which I think that's the first time I've read that from someone born in the 1800s. They had 8 kids and they all lived.
It was weird that they would put that in his biography, but I understand it because of the time. But I wonder when that stopped happening, when people stopped saying they had X amount of kids and here's how many of them actually live past 6 months.
Yeah, I don't know, probably like the 70s.
Do you mean like the 1870s or the 1970s?
No, genuinely the 1970s. I know, like, yeah, there's plenty of families who like kids die. Like, the tuberculosis was, yeah, but it's certainly more.
I've been reading the newspapers. There's a lot of little nippers being banged off things.
That's a very jolly way of saying it. But maybe back then though they were like 8 kids. To be honest, we do not have the finances for 8 out of 8. We thought you make 8, 4 of them live. I'd only budgeted for about half of this.
Are you saying that that's what happened with the church? They didn't take those kids. They were just, we have too many. We've got surplus children.
We gotta get rid of some of them.
I swear to God, she doesn't know who the father is. I'm telling you, he's they're just knocking on the window.
Yeah.
And she's 16. Yeah. I'm 32. Get her out of here.
I'm just an unmarried woman. I was knocked up by a travelling Protestant. I've known your husband for 10 years. Sure, I married you. Just please take them for a few days. So George, the two of them ran a school in Donnybrook where George would have been educated. Then he was sent to Dundalk for a proper secondary school education. And then he went back to Dublin for college in 1910.
Just like this man right here telling me the story.
Yeah, exactly. Raised in Donnybrook, back to Dundalk for a bit of learning, and then down to Dublin for 1910. I'd read, I think he was working in the for the government then at that stage, which brought him up to 1914 when the first news of trouble started brewing in Europe. This is going to be a World War I heavy episode. So, for 2 points, what kicked off World War I? Do you know the guy who was assassinated? And the assassin's name?
It was the restrictions placed on Germany by World War Zero, I believe.
Yes, yeah. On the 28th of June, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria and his pregnant wife Sophia were assassinated by Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb nationalist. Gavrilo was 19 going on 20 at the time, so he was a year older than George, I think. I just went down a rabbit hole of reading about Princip this morning. So he was 19. World War I was probably going to happen at some point, but he kicked it off. So he spent all of World War I locked in solitary confinement in a prison in Hungary, and then he got tuberculosis and lost his arm, which I didn't know you could, like, was a side effect of tuberculosis.
I don't believe it is.
And then so he spent 4 years in just solitary confinement and died 7 months before the war ended, just getting regular updates the whole time about the war that he caused.
Okay, but how did he cause it?
So like when he killed...
Did you Google to see if TB causes arm amputations?
No, because to be honest, this story is a bit... It's not too rough, but it's a lot of World War I stuff. There was plenty of moments when I was reading this where I was like, ooh, that's a bit grim. I didn't need to start Googling about tuberculosis.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Also, a man loses his arm in World War One. It's hardly anything to write home about.
Yeah, exactly. Not that he could write home. Not with his left hand. He assassinates Franz Ferdinand. Franz Ferdinand is the heir to the throne of Austria-Hungary, and they start imposing penalties on Serbia and threaten war if they're not met. And then because there's all these pre-existing pacts, so Russia was siding with Serbia, Germany had a pact with Austria-Hungary. A month after the assassination, Austria-Hungary officially declares war on Serbia. Germany supports them. To get ahead of the inevitable, Germany declares war on Russia and France within a few days. I think their idea was that like Russia would take a while to mobilize, so they were just going to knock out France with a sneak attack, which involved going through Belgium. And Britain had a pact to protect neutral Belgium. So then they get dragged into the war. So within the space of a month, all these superpowers are now at war. And Gabriello was just locked up in a damn cell, being like, well, it's not my fault. It was bound to happen eventually.
Was neutral Belgium just because they were neutral for the war, or was that just yet another region or language in Belgium?
They were just, there was a separate section.
Wallonia, Flanders, neutral Belgium.
Neutral. So Britain entered the war on the 4th of August, which is a bit over a month after the assassination. They declare war on the Central Powers, so they automatically bring in all the colonies, dominions, whatever, into World War I, including Ireland. Posters soon pop up recruiting Irish men to go join the chaps in Europe. Do you ever see any of those old posters?
I don't think so.
A lot of them are like football orientated. It's just like... It's like a British man holding a ball, being like, come on, Ireland, why don't you kick one for Tommy? And like, it'll just be all France and the boys heading off to play a good game, and Ireland will be there, probably like riding on top of a pig, and they'll be like, come on, Paddy, it's 4-4 against Fritz.
But the GAA would have been established at this point. Surely that would have been a bad marketing PR, like graphic design campaign of going, hey, do you know what you're trying to abolish? And can bring like that doesn't seem like a very smart idea.
No, you're right.
You know that thing you hate? Here's a bunch of posters with us asking you to come join a war that you don't need to.
I'm not entirely they definitely didn't put their best marketing team on this. I'm sure there was ones for cricket, like, let's go, hit it for 6, Paddy. They
should have just put one out saying, come on, Tfek.
That was genuinely, the general message was, come on.
You can use what we teach you on us at a later date.
Well, yeah, that'll come up now in a few minutes. But so one of the most famous posters from the time is the man with a big mustache pointing outwards, being like, your country needs you. Join the army for king and country.
Yes, like the English Uncle Sam.
Yeah. So predated the Uncle Sam one. But yeah, it's the same idea. And that's Lord Horatio Kitchener, who was a Kerry man, born in Ballylongford, north of Listowel in 1850, after his English father purchased an estate there after the famine, where he was, by all accounts, a harsh and unruly landlord, who was very unpopular. And then so they moved out in 1864. Horatio might have moved out of there even before then. But as well as being famous for his recruitment poster, he was Secretary of State for War during World War I, and was also known for his scorched earth policy and expansion of concentration camps during the Boer War. So, another proud Kerry man.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think Kitchener ever described himself as Irish, and his parents only seemed to be there for a while because of the cheap post-famine real estate. But I'd also read that apparently he used his Irishness when he was trying to recruit, but I don't know.
As in to get Irish lads to join?
Yeah, I couldn't find any examples of that. But
come on, my old mucker, why don't you join? I'm there.
Oi. there'll be a couple of cans for the lads over in the trenches, and a sticking game of hurl and toss up.
Cans with no minimal per item price.
Good tins of lager, right? Me old flower, sunshine.
I went into Aldi the other day and I was going to go get an IPA, a brown bear. I was in for other reasons as well, but I'd say once I'm here, that's how they get you. And it was the first day after the new laws had come in. I was like, all right.
When you went in for something else, do you do the like? Because it's shameful whenever you walk in, you go straight to the alcohol. You have to at least potter around the other aisles.
I went in for an apple, a single solitary apple.
I went in for an apple and a can.
And then I thought, why not buy 6 large bottles of beer? Because I'm here now. But
I don't need the apple.
But I don't have enough for the apple, actually. Here, take this back. But I noticed that the pricing, not like it. I obviously haven't looked into it enough. I know that they're raising the prices, and I know it's like $1.70 minimum per can, wherever that's going to be. I didn't realize that it means that all the higher ABV alcohol goes up in price.
Yeah, it's based on percentage.
Yeah, which killed me because I love the 7.5% beers. So that jumped €1.
Yeah.
So that was a lot. Well, granted, it's probably if you have 2 of those a night, it's €2. But €2 by every day of the year.
I mean, this story involves an awful lot of World War I, and certainly the raising of minimum price alcohol units is a bigger stain on this country.
Yeah, we'll do a separate episode about that. Back to World War I.
This be an hour and a half of us drunkenly shouting at the price of cans. But yeah, in 1914, at the outbreak of World War I, the main political topic in Ireland was Home Rule. Should the Irish be allowed to control itself, but it's still as part of the UK? So the Home Rule Act, or the Government
I was
of
going
Ireland
to say,
Act,
is this what you were trying to get me into the Home Rule Club down in Kilkenny the other day, and I realised it was me trying to get you in there.
Yeah, you brought me down, and then we stood outside and were shocked that it wasn't open at like 12 o'clock on a random Tuesday in January. Yeah. They're only trying to keep us out.
They're obviously not that into Home Rule, seemingly, then, because if you're really into it, it'd be a 24/7 kind of deal.
Yeah, exactly. The two politically minded fellows like ourselves dropped down with ideas of how Ireland should be governed from Westminster with a soft touch, and the door's locked to us. It's
we were
no
there
wonder
thinking,
this country.
Well, look, Home Rule is the rule of a man who believes that cats are stupid. The Pope the other day said that it's wrong that people are not having kids and having cats instead, like young people, which is true. It's just like we're getting pets instead of, getting a load of kids by the age of 25. We're like, well, why don't I get to 25 without a kid, get a cat, see how that goes for a few years, then make the decision. He's like, you're evil.
Jeez, can you imagine?
Saw some good responses online though. You're a virgin and you can't drive, so I mean,
you're what? So you're a prime candidate for a cat.
He probably should get a cat. Yeah.
Can you imagine having 8 kids like these McElroys,
and all of them lived past infancy?
You'd be ruined.
Yeah. Oof. I suppose there's plenty of people from our generation. My dad has like 10 siblings.
Yeah, I know, but now even like 40 years later, it's fucking after everyone I know is entering like childbearing ages, and like 2, and then I'd probably need to rob a bank.
Depending on your fear of commitment, no, that's a complete lie. And so what do you mean childbearing ages? 45? No one I know is 45 yet.
I've frozen all my sperm, so I think maybe when I'm 89 I'll be ready to settle and have enough money to raise 2 children. Yeah, so they're all worried about Home Rule at the time. Home Rule was supposed to come in 1914. It was supposed to start in September of 1914, but it was shelved because of World War I. Convenient.
How many lads do you think at the time thought that was World War I happened only so that we couldn't have Home Rule?
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a giant conspiracy.
You kind of lump all these things together. You're so used to hearing about World War I, and you're like, yeah, of course. But you can imagine at the time, like you're after decades of slow march towards some semblance of freedom, and then like 2 months before it's due to start, a giant war breaks out over some guy being shot in Austria. You'd definitely be suspicious.
And it's not happened, there's not been another world war before that to say like, it's just another one of these. It's if that's
they really had to up the ante. We can't just do the usual thing of starting a war with the Boers. We need to have a world war. That's the only thing that'll get Paddy off our back.
But then do they think that it's like all of the other countries in Europe and the world are involved in this? You're all just anti-Irish.
Yeah, well, definitely.
Yeah.
You're telling me there's not some lad that was sat in that home rule club in Kilkenny drinking ahead of himself being like, it's the Serbs. There's that lad still there now.
Yeah, but he's saying the Serbs for different reasons.
Yeah. So at the time, nationalists they're disagreeing on how to handle things. The Irish Volunteer Force, we talked about this in like the Hoth gun running episode. They had armed themselves because the Ulster Volunteer Force had armed themselves in 1912, and in 1914, the Irish Volunteers had an armed membership of about 150 or 160,000. But the leader of the Irish Parliamentary Party, John Redmond, thought it'd be better for Irish nationalism if he took that force and joined the British Army in World War One. So one of the main issues around Home Rule was they were worried that Ulster was going to reject it, and the UVF would use their weapons to declare war, so that the whole country would go into civil war. But Redmond's idea, which is what you were talking about earlier, is that they'd be fighting alongside the Ulster boys against a common enemy in Europe. And if things didn't go their way when Home Rule was introduced, they now had like a battle-hardened army, as opposed to just lads who'd be marching up and down the park with toy guns.
Yeah, with hurls, basically.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Which apparently Lord Kitchener as well, the guy from the poster, opposed him forming an Irish regiment for that exact reason. Which makes, if you're in like a tumultuous time and then the armed, what's essentially the Irish army at the time was like, oh yeah, we'll help. If we all get to go over together and you show us how to use guns.
Oh, you know what they say, keep your friends close and your enemies, don't give them guns. Definitely don't give them guns.
I think he wanted to split them up amongst different regiments, but they ended up forming their own Irish regiment anyway. So the ones that went with Redmond were known as the National Volunteers. That was about 140,000, and only about 9 or 10,000 stayed in Ireland, known as the Irish Volunteers. And then I think altogether it was about 200,000 Irishmen went and served for Blighty in the British armies of World War One. Mostly because they thought
men and women.
Yeah, that's true. That's fair. But so there's a bit of a split as to whether they should go.
Yeah.
Our hero George McElroy wasn't as divided though. He signed up to fight for king and country at 18 years old. So I read a few different dates for when he signed up, including one before England joined the war. But they're all around August and September. So pretty much straight away, within like weeks of England declaring war, he's up. He's ready to fight.
Mm-hmm. Good man himself. 18, it's a good career path, solid job, good benefits.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at this stage, he's already a man. It's him and his 8 children. It's him and his 8 siblings all living in a tiny house in Donnybrook. It's time to go out and see the world.
Maybe 8 children by now as well, though. You don't know.
No, there's no mention of any children, but to be honest, yeah, that doesn't, for these times, that doesn't mean anything. He could have several. So he starts the war in the motorcycle section of the Royal Engineers, serving as a dispatch rider. So he was riding around his motorbike delivering messages, which is...
Do they get leather jackets?
Pretty cool. Yeah. You know what? He probably did have 8 children at home. Again, riding around his motorbike, delivering messages up and down the front line.
A nice pair of Lee jeans. Maybe
yeah.
a little waft back quiff. Oh, this man, pack of cigarettes rolled up in in the sleeve of his shirt and his arm. Oh my God.
Aviator shades.
Well, he's not a pilot.
Not yet. But so by the spring of 1915, he'd enrolled in the Royal Irish Regiment, just in time to join the Second Battle of Ypres in Belgium in April 1915. So again, there's about 4 or 5 different accounts of like what he actually did during this first few months of the war. He might have been in Belgium already, or he might have trained with them in Ireland and came over for this in April. I'd written down here that he was definitely there in April, but later on it contradicts itself in about 2 lines. So I don't know. But in April 1915, the Germans started using poison gases on a large scale on the Western Front. So there's a battle on the 22nd of April in this Battle of Ypres where they released chlorine gas across the battlefield, and the battalion that's there just assume it's like a smokescreen attack that the enemy's going to pop out from behind. So they all like hold the line, probably with their mouths open, breathing deeply, waiting for the Germans to pop out, and then all get like gassed.
Okay, now chlorine gas, explain that to me.
It's not good. It fucks up your lungs.
Makes your eyes go very red.
Yeah, think about like an over-chlorinated pool and then set that on fire and inhale it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's not great. And they'd never seen anything like this before. So it kills a load of men and severely injures thousands. And so in some sources it says George is injured in this first wave. Other sources say he wasn't even there yet. But eventually he does get injured by this gas. It like really damages his lungs to the point where he gets sent back to Dublin to recuperate. At some point over that summer, I think he's back in Dublin by October. But by the time he's back from that Battle of Ypres, 70,000 allies have been killed and 35,000 of the Central Powers have been killed, which is like the population of Drogheda dead, but like in a bad way.
And yeah. So
but like it's like that, but negative.
Yeah, it's wow. That must be. I couldn't even imagine that. I couldn't imagine that many people dying in Drogheda and it being a negative thing.
I know.
But so, how many of those are Irish? Do you know?
Yeah, I don't know how many was out of his battalion, but probably a fair few.
Well, if we were first,
a couple of here and there,
probably quite a lot.
Yeah.
This is like a South Park movie with the Chef's Brigade. Just like, okay, yeah, exactly. So our plan is front row, you guys.
What were they called?
Done, we'll think about coming in.
Battalion Human Shield.
Yeah.
So, yeah, at some point he got injured over in Belgium, got gassed, went back to Dublin with his damaged nose and spent time recuperating there. He got like some surgery on his nose to get him fighting fit again, and he was deemed fit for service by early January. He was reassigned to his regiment and he was waiting with them in Dublin to be called back to the front line. And, he was just grateful for the little things, He'd seen war for a couple of months. It almost killed him. You got to appreciate the small things. He was happy. He was able to be in Dublin for Easter celebrations.
Okay. An idea where this is going.
On Easter Monday, the 24th of April, 1916, word came out to the regiment that there was a ruckus kicking off around Dublin. Some boys and women had taken over various buildings around the city, and by Tuesday the 25th, the regiment was ordered to go and sort them out. So, again, this is where there's different accounts. Some say that George refused to take part in the fighting once he realised it was the 1916 Rising, but his regiment did help put the rebellion down. It seems unlikely that he would have been able to talk his way out of not going. So it might have just been that he might have been reassigned to a different barracks, or I'd read somewhere that he did. I don't know how he'd be able to say that he's not going and not get arrested.
You could go AWOL. And you're already in your own country, so it's a great place to desert because just go home or go to your auntie's house somewhere.
You can just lie low for a couple of days. Because he doesn't desert, and it doesn't. Nothing really happens to him, but apparently he didn't do anything.
Okay, well, I mean, not doing anything's better than running towards them to join them. I mean, in the eyes of the English.
Yeah, maybe so.
Because you could imagine that probably went through some of their heads.
Yeah.
There's some lads walking down there, like the English were like, send the Irish brigade. And then they go down there, okay, we're going to need some English guys over here now because their army has quadrupled in size. And now they have more guns.
That'd be interesting, actually. I wonder did anyone just switch sides on the day. Yeah, but either way, he avoided having to get embroiled in it. He was then also sent back to mainland Europe. And it was always written as they were so desperate for troops. I don't think they would have been that desperate for troops that early on. Where one of the few things you have to do as a soldier is just not question orders.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's the only thing.
But there's mitigating circumstances.
Yeah, true. But I don't think
the English would have cared.
I don't think they'd just be like, yeah. If in 1916 you're told to shoot a man, you're like, he's my cousin. They'd be like, shoot him twice.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably, I don't know, they're not, even if they're not desperate, it's the army. They're never it's rare that in times of war they turn away anybody, because why wouldn't you want more men? It's a world war.
Yeah, maybe this time.
If I was in charge, that's my propaganda. Within the first week, I'd be like, guys, we're going to need way more than this. We're going to need everybody. Yeah. Go back and get your children. Bring them with you. It's bring your daughter to work day.
There's also a good chance that, I hadn't seen this written anywhere, but because George McElroy goes on and does some pretty cool stuff, and there's a certain Irish people love to claim people that have done things, which is the whole basis of this show. It's possible that people just said he didn't do anything during the Rising, because that they know he's stationed there, and they know his regiment was asked to do something.
Oh, yeah. You think he definitely did something?
He wasn't caught on CCTV. There's no photographic evidence of him doing anything, so it was just easier to be like, and you know what? He stood up to the British and said, no, these are my countrymen, and he laid down his arms. There's a good chance he just went out and like did some patrol thing.
Yeah, probably. Or shot some people, because what I feel like now is you're about to tell me that he's a hero. This guy's an overall hero, a fine man.
Yeah, you know.
So he's done some cool things. What are these?
He does some cool things. Like, well, let's get into it then. So his first commission is up around about this time. So he applies to attend the Royal Military Academy in Woolwich to get a permanent commission, and he's accepted, which also implies
he's an Arsenal fan.
Yeah, exactly. He graduates from there with a permanent rank of second lieutenant in February of 2017 and is assigned to the Royal Garrison Artillery. And then in March 1917, he transfers to the Royal Flying Corps, the RFC, which later becomes the Royal Air Force, the RAF.
Finally gets those sweet glasses.
This is when he gets the aviators. So, back in 1903, the Wright brothers' plane, the Flyer, flew to the dizzying altitude of 10 feet for 12 seconds. That was about, 11 years before World War I started. So air warfare is definitely like a new field.
That is a lot of development in the space of 11 years.
Yeah, I don't think they developed that much. I think it was when the war started, they're like, oh,
you know what? I'm thinking
shit,
World
maybe
War II. Yeah, because there was.
World War II, yeah. No, World War I, so you're going from like getting to the height of a man standing on another man's shoulders to trying to get it battle ready.
It's a big jump, but
in the early days of warfare, like most of these planes could be stopped by a man with a net.
Yeah.
Initially, planes are just used for reconnaissance work before pilots started carrying pistols to try and shoot the other planes down, which was pretty much impossible.
Yeah, that seems pretty stupid.
Yeah, but I mean, you got to be seen to be doing something.
But no one's going to see you. You're up in the air.
Yeah, but you'd certainly see a plane crash.
Yeah, but you're probably not going to see it crash because a pistol is probably not going to shoot down a plane.
Well, yeah, I don't know if any of them actually succeeded, but they're so rickety. If you shoot it, it'll go down.
Scare the man so much that if he jerks, the plane just crashes.
Well, apparently the whole thing's vibrating. Like these early ones are just made out of canvas, and you're just like jittering all over the place, and then trying to like point a gun out a window. So that's like the initial steps. By 1915, a Dutch aviator by the name of Anthony Fokker invented a mechanism that synced up a machine gun with the plane's propeller, so that it would shoot bullets through the propeller.
Is that how it works? I've always wondered that.
Yeah.
I always thought there must have been a way around or underneath, but okay, so it is, they find a way to shoot through, because that seems dangerous.
I've seen GIFs of it, which is hard to describe over an audio format, but it's basically like the two of them are part of the same mechanism, so the bullet can only shoot when the propeller is out of the way.
Oh, okay.
It's
technology.
That is pretty cool technology. So now they can shoot, the German planes can like shoot directly where the plane is pointing, which is very handy. But the Allies soon make their own version of what they'd nicknamed the Fokker Scourge, which they definitely just called the fucking Scourge.
Yes.
So in the early part of the war, the average life expectancy of a pilot was several weeks, between 40 to 60 hours of actual flight time. But, compared to the misery and shit of fighting in the actual trenches, it was seen as something of romantic. Pilots were compared to modern knights of the sky and used as propaganda for both sides. Children would swap trading cards with their favorite pilots. And in the stuff I was reading, it kind of described them as modern day astronauts. But do you remember that Norm Macdonald bit where he's talking about the last man to walk on the moon?
No. I should know that.
It's a very good bit where he's just talking about fame. And when he was growing up, astronauts were famous. He's you're the last man to walk on the moon? Harrison Schmitt. Who the hell ever heard of that guy? He said he looked it up and there's been 13 to 14 people have ever walked on the moon, which you would think would make them all superstars. But
yeah, because I can only ever think of two.
But then I looked it up and he's wrong. Harrison Schmitt is apparently the second last person. Gene Kernan is the last person, although only by a couple of seconds. And the point still stands because I have no idea who that is.
Because I don't even know the name of the guy who stayed on the shuttle, and we all should know his name. Because all I can ever think of is Neil Armstrong and Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah, you should definitely know the name of the guy who stayed on the ship.
Jason Brennan.
he shares it with another equally famous Irish character. It's Michael Collins.
I have heard that before. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just looked it up there. There's no woman has ever walked on the moon. Really gave up on that whole thing. I don't know when Harrison Schmitt, it was probably the 70s.
Well, I'll one up you there, Kevin, and I'll tell you that no man has ever walked on the moon.
I could drive a woman down to a soundstage in Mexico any day of the week. But yeah, so the main, unlike the astronauts of our day, kids celebrated the pilots of World War One, and the main flying celebrities were called aces, fighter pilots with 5 or more confirmed kills. So if you shoot down 5 planes, you're a hero, which kind of speaks to how difficult it is.
And it is very impressive when you're saying, I was going to say with pistols, this is when you actually
have a machine gun, and they're still like, you did what? You shot down 5 planes?
Without being shot down yourself, that is impressive.
No, you're allowed to be shot down yourself.
No, because I used to have to cut videos for the, I'd say that, is it NDA? I don't know. I used to work for the Air Force for doing certain videos. And there's when you see the footage of what they were using back then.
Yeah.
I did a lot of World War II, and even then that's impressive, but never mind World War One. I would give people the Medal of Honor for getting it up and landing it.
Oh no, definitely. We'll get into some of the stuff now, but it was crazy even to get into the planes, because it's so new. And in the months before George joined the Flying Corps, the English were losing pilots to the German Luftstreitkraft. During the Battle of the Somme, which had been between July and November of 1916, they lost 782 planes and 576 pilots, which I assume it's probably 1, maybe 2 pilots per plane, but that's pretty much, if your plane goes down, you're not walking away from that.
Well, hold on, 700 and how many?
782 planes and 576 pilots died.
So there's that. No, that's good numbers considering. If there's more than one person per plane,
that
means you might actually have a 50-50 chance.
Yeah, 50-50. I don't think they're not.
Those numbers are off. I'll let you know now. Those numbers are off. But if it was one pilot per plane, that's still out of the 782. There's still over 200 people that survived.
Yeah, but they don't know about crash landing or any of that stuff yet.
Neither do you.
I've seen enough films. I know how to pull out of a nosedive. After I've been reading all this stuff this morning. So yeah, they were losing so many pilots that they were starting to freak out about the training regime that they were putting them through. So they had new requirements for pilots. You had to do 15 hours of solo flying, cross-country flight of 60 miles, land twice, which is a very small number, and get up to 6,000 feet and fly at that height for 15 minutes, and then land at night.
This is like a full license test. It's like a test for a car.
Yeah, which I mean is going to be sending these boys up to fight. That's probably the least you should do.
But I mean, think about how many go up and how many actually come back. I wouldn't be doing too many tests. I'd just be letting them at it.
That's pretty much what they were doing. But they only brought in those tests at this stage, and it took 4 weeks. But by 1917, they'd added in that you had to perform some acrobatics. You had to do the side slip, the loop, and imitate a fall out of control and perform a few other maneuvers.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
But the only way they could train was it was the same as when you're learning how to drive, and they've got the dual control where your instructor has pedals as well.
Oh, I thought you said it was my dad's going to be beside them, just going, look, some people just aren't meant to fly.
No, fucking put it in drive. No, drive. For fuck's sake, drive. For fuck's sake.
I'll bring it home. It's fine. It's fine. I'll bring it home. Yeah.
But so when they're teaching them how to fly, they're using these dual control systems, but they didn't have any instructors. So all this stuff is being done in real time. They'd never had to come up with how to teach new people how to fly. So the people giving the instructions were the people who had just gotten instructions 2 months previous. You're only one lesson ahead of the students.
I think that's how most of the world is taught everything.
But then you're also subject to, I don't know, say your guy went up, got into a crash, and then he's teaching you. You're going to have a very nervous approach to flying. You're not going to learn how to actually fly.
Unless it involves teaching someone how to sit inside of an airplane and then just have a breakdown and start crying. Is that on the test?
Now, what you're going to do is piss yourself before you can take off, and sometimes they'll let you not fly that day. But even the most experienced pilots, they knew that if you moved the controls a certain way, the plane would react. But they didn't actually, no one really knew why. They never got to the stage of understanding aerodynamics or why anything happened. which meant that if something unexpected happened, you weren't able to think outside of the box because you didn't understand the fundamentals of flying. So a lot of it was like trial and error. Like I was reading up until 1917, if you went into a nosedive spin, you're just going to die because no one knew how to stop that. And it was only by pure luck that a few people figured out how to survive it. And then like anecdotal evidence came out that you're supposed to, this will be a helpful tip for you someday. You need to push forward on your joystick rather than pull back, and then you'll be okay.
Okay, but also what I would say is that that's like the advice people give to you in a car at nighttime when you hit like black ice.
Yeah, slide into it.
Like, oh, what you need to do here is what I'm going to do, regardless of how many times you tell me that, is close my eyes, put my hands over my eyes, and then just hope for the best.
That's always my...
Slam on the brakes hard and turn out of it. I think that's what they say.
I always think that, yeah, whenever like, you ever hear some advice like, this might just save your life one day. It's like, there's a very good chance I'm just going to curl up into a ball. That's my defense mechanism for most things.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter how many times you tell me as well. Most of the time, I'm probably not listening. If they didn't have the instructions on the breathing devices that come down on airplanes and flights, like modern day, no one would know.
No.
And that's every single flight you've ever taken. They have to do all of that pointing at stuff and telling you what to do. And every single person on the plane has giant headphones on.
Well, and even after 2 years of COVID, every time I think I've caught it, I'm like, it's a respiratory illness, and I can't smell.
Runny eyes.
I can taste cheese more than I could last week.
Tingly feet.
What do I do? No one pays any attention to anything. But, yeah, according to The Great War in the Air by John H. Marrow, one British officer complained in May 1917 that most pilots being sent into combat can't even fly, let alone fight. Which was...
not ideal.
No. But this was exactly the time George was heading through Air Force training.
Wait, they didn't tell him that though, did they?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it was printed in like British Weekly. Keep the chin up, boys.
Yeah.
You can't fly for shit.
If you get in there, you probably won't know what to do. It's like the first ever class I had in college, one of the heads of the course came in and he was meant to like introduce himself, and he like wrote his name on the board and then just turned around and said, if anyone out here would like to ever have a job in their life, I would recommend walking out that door now.
That's useful.
He's the head of the course.
Yeah. I mean, he was right.
Yeah.
Look,
and we put our heads down. We worked hard. We ate our vegetables and studied our books. And then at the end of that, 20% of people were employed in a variety of different roles. Most of them not in journalism.
Yeah. At least he gave it to you straight, But yeah, it was so. Yeah, George figured that a lot of the early training was useless. A lot of it was about like how to repair your plane in the air or how to fix your malfunctioning weapon, which think you can do on the ground, but practically if you're in the air, you're dead. In the early stages, if your plane stops working, you're just going to die.
It's sad. Well, I shouldn't be laughing when I'm saying it's sad, but God, that must be true.
Yeah.
Of just just so you know, it's going to take is a lot of trial and error, and then try again. It's too late to try again. Next one up. If while you're falling from the sky, you could yell to us what went wrong, we could glean a lot of insight.
But that's the other thing, because I read that a good bit as well. Because even from the trial and error, you have to say you do miraculously survive, and all of a sudden people are like, how did you do it, Jimmy? Like, I hit every button, I prayed to every god I'd ever heard of, I shit myself, and then I'm alive. And so you have to like get over. It has to happen enough times that eventually
and in that exact order.
Yes.
You gotta write that down. That's important.
Take notes.
Shit yourself last.
What did he shit himself first? He's all over the place. But like so you have to do that enough times for someone to have the wherewithal to actually remember what they did, and then for that also to be right. But George, he passed the early stages with flying colours. And in the next step of your training, you actually have to go up in a plane as a passenger, which it's like hard to think of now because you can pay Ryanair a tenner to fly to Gdansk. But like up until very recently at that stage, no human had ever travelled that high or at that speed and survived. Maybe if they're falling off a cliff.
Yeah.
But like imagine getting up into a plane. Like apparently a lot of them.
It'd be like now if an astronaut was like, would you like to go to space?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, what?
You've been dreaming about it for years, and then all of a sudden you're in a spaceship, and you've done no training really. You've read about them, and then
Can I have the front seat?
Yeah, up front and center.
It's probably safer to be in the. Well, keep it then. Can I tell you with this? I can keep it.
No, I want front seat
My
or
bag's
nothing.
in it. I don't see Everyone knows the rules. The rules are a little different in space. So you're just telling me that? You're telling me that's why I gotta sit in the back seat like a bitch?
I'm not writing bitch the whole way to the moon, I'll tell you that now. But yeah, so apparently a lot of them froze when they were up there on their first joint flight. The first flight with an instructor was called a joy flip. And cadets, I don't know if it was true or not, but a lot of the cadets had a common conspiracy that the instructors would purposely flip the plane over, nosedive, and generally try and scare the shit out of you in an attempt to get you battle ready, which is probably true. Or else the instructors could have just been really bad at flying, which is equally true.
Yeah, if I was to get, I would guess it's this. There's no way they had enough planes, and there was already so many people dying that I doubt they were just switching the engine off, going like, "No, wait for this, wait for this, wait for this."
They just
wait for
fucking
this. Get the camera. Do not miss his reaction. Do not miss his reaction.
winking at each other. It was so you go through that ordeal, and then after about 3 hours of flying time, you're allowed to go solo. So I read a lot of claims about the number of pilots who died during training. In the first year of the war, between August 1914 and December 1915, of the 153 British pilots that died, 89 were killed in action or died of wounds after being shot down, and 64 died in training or from the wounds in training. So that's like 58% die in combat, 42% die in training.
Yeah, don't train them. Just let them up. Yeah.
Well,
how many of those deaths do you think were instructors going, "Hold on, now I'm gonna scare the shit out of this lad," and oh
fuck. I also don't know at what stage the parachute was invented. But so that's like 58% to 42%, and I thought that ratio would go in favor of combat as it went on. But it gets way worse because I guess at least those pilots, 153 pilots is not that many, and planes were new, but they really start ramping up as the war goes on, but the training doesn't get any better, really. So you're pushing way more fighters out with less training. And I read in a few other places that by the end of the war, 6,000 pilots had been killed in action, but 8,000 had died in training in England.
Holy
so,
shit.
Again, there's a few different ones of this, so I don't know. But I'd read in a few different places, basically your odds are not good. Your odds of dying in training are very high, if not even equal to being shot down.
Fuck, that is... But then again, I guess, what were the percentage of people who went to World War I and then died on the field?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but you're right. It's not as if your odds in trench warfare were like fine and dandy.
Yeah, it was a bad time.
Yeah,
and also it's also like, do you want to come? You can I'll take my chances in the trench. I'll come back and I'll be alive and I'll have my head turned to mush.
Yeah,
and I won't be given any respect by any of the people that go back to the world that I've saved.
Yeah,
so might as well just die in the plane. At least that way you get to fly a plane.
And people did think that the pilots were heroes.
All 4 of them that made it.
All 4 of them. Well, in 1917, British manufacturers made 14,000 planes. In 1914, it had made 193. So that's the sort of ramp up they'd done over the course of the war.
Mm-hmm.
And there was also, this also contributed to the deaths. There's no time for field testing of planes. So they'd be trying to make better planes. You'd build it, and then someone would just go up in the prototype. And then if they die, you're like, well, maybe we won't use that one again. But there's no time to test new planes properly.
Do you think that's why so many of the pilots died in England while training?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. They're just like, well, how about you test out the new Brennan model? It's got 5 wings instead of 1. Was that the right number? He's dead. But George survives basic training, and he moves on to higher training, where the requirements are you have to fly up 2 kilometers and fly at a speed of 160 kilometers per hour.
So 2 kilometers on top of the 6 that you already had to do the first time?
No, I'm realizing now that I changed the measurements in this one to metric because I was like, fuck this. We'll deal in kilometers. But I forgot to change the first one. So it's 6,000 feet versus 2 kilometers.
I'm not doing those calculations.
No, but so you're flying higher, you're flying faster, and you also start into gunner training at this point. So the gunner training apparently involved another plane would fly around and drag a canvas target behind it while you shot at it, which in a war full of bad jobs, that's got to be one of the shittest ones. You fly around the target plane. These people have never shot a plane before, which is already difficult, and you have to you fly around with a target behind you.
At least it's behind you. It's not that plain. It seems like that was also part of their training earlier on before they copped on and realised maybe we shouldn't be shooting down our own planes as part of the training.
Maybe.
The deaths they dropped significantly after that. Right? How about a target that doesn't have human life on it? So just crazy enough to maybe work.
Maybe what you should have been a general at this time. You got brave ideas.
And a lack of respect for human life.
Did you ever hear that like survivorship bias thing? I think it's more from World War II, but where planes were coming back riddled with bullets in certain places. So they were saying that like
these planes, these got shot and they stayed up, so therefore they're the good ones. So let's send them back out and shot down planes.
Yeah. Or they were coming back riddled with holes in certain places, and they were like, oh, we need to add more defense to those areas. But in reality, you need to add defense to the other areas because the planes that were getting shot in the other areas were the ones that weren't coming back at all. So you could get, if you come back with a hole in the place, you're like, well, I can survive that. But not so much the other one. I think it was similar with, I don't know how much this is true or just like apocryphal, but it was similar with helmets where they're like, ever since we started wearing helmets, head trauma and concussions have gone up 60%. So, well, that's all those people were dead before.
That's fair. But I will tell you that all of the recent studies, they do say that, yeah, wearing headgear and like boxing and stuff, that it's worse. Because there's a lot more area to actually hit. And no one's worried about like breaking your skull when you're punching someone. It's more about like rattling the brain around inside your head. So if you make that target area bigger, you're probably going to cause more concussions.
Yeah, I was talking about...
I don't know if that's true or not, and I like to wear headgear because I like my face, so...
I was talking more about, like, war helmets, but yeah, you're right. No, let's say it here now. If you're boxing, take off your headgear.
Yeah, be a real man.
Come on. By August 1917, George was deemed fit to get his wings. He returned back to France and was stationed with the 40th Squadron.
What do you mean he's only getting his wings now? What was in the plane before?
Yeah, they give you...
No wonder they were crashing.
Yeah,
it's like the Red Bull air event. What was that called?
Oh yeah, where they have to like run off the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone just falls into the water. Yeah. It's great.
It's so funny that at this, like, the last thing I would associate Red Bull with at this stage is a drink. If I can forget that
it's like ice skating events and fully grown men with stupid wings falling into like harbours.
Yeah, that guy who jumped off from the edge of space. Remember that?
Yeah, football teams in Germany and Austria. Yeah, and then they also, you do forget.
At some point they make a drink. I don't know if we said this before actually, but I think my friend works for like advertising, some company that advertises alcohol, and they're using Red Bull as an example that you just need to constantly keep advertising because it's not that great of a drink, and there's loads of other ones that like it, and you need to constantly keep advertising and getting the brand out there. Whereas Buckfast, the advice is don't touch it. We don't know how it's selling as well as it is. Don't ever advertise it because you never see it advertised.
But you can't.
So you can advertise other alcohol.
You could advertise it for what it's meant to be, like a tonic wine.
Yeah.
But you can't advertise it for what
it
most
is.
people want it for, is to drink the heads of themselves. But I realise now we have a lot of listeners in America who have no idea what this is.
Get on to us and we'll send you a shoulder of Buckfast and you can thank us later. We'll put it up on Big Cartel. But so he returns to France and he's stationed with the 40th Squadron at Comblain-l'Aube airfield, a few miles from the Belgian border, where he served under the most famous British ace of them all, Edward Mick Mannock. Mannock was most likely born in Ballincollig in Cork in 1887, but it's unclear. So apparently he would always say that he was born in Cork, but there's no record of that actually happening. But his mother was Irish, and his father had met his mother when he was stationed in Cork. But then they left shortly afterwards and went to India. What's
the likelihood of someone with other options claiming to be from Cork?
Yeah, that's it. And he's like a British RAF man. So it's unlikely that for the crack he was like, I'm from Ballincollig.
Probably not. No, yeah, you'd say India or England.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. So
now, is when you specifically said Mick?
Yes, he's like M-I-C-K. That was his nickname, which is
racist.
Yeah, well, yeah. But, I mean, for the times, for the 1914 British Army, that's very much acceptable racism.
Yeah, and even realistically in the history of the world, I've never taken offence to being called a Mick.
No, that's...
Like, when I drink cocktails in Mexico, I call myself a dirty Mick Alada.
Yeah, disgracing your home country. But, he was nicknamed Mick by his fellow airmen. So I don't know if he had an accent. I think he I think he enjoyed his Irish heritage because it said he got into politics when he got back from India, and he was, a staunch British man, but he also supported Irish Home Rule at the time. When World War One broke out, he'd been working as a telephone mechanic in modern-day Turkey, so he was interned there once the Ottomans sided with the Central Powers. But he got fairly sick in the camps and was eventually released back to Britain because he was deemed unfit to serve. But instead, he became the 5th highest scoring ace of World War One. Do you want to guess how many people he killed to get that?
It's at least 5. I
Yeah,
know
there
that.
you
I
go.
have been paying attention.
There you go.
So I'm going to say 6.
You're close-ish.
Is it 7?
No, 61.
Whoa, that's massive.
Yeah. The highest guy was the German, the Red Baron, who I think
Wait,
had 80.
Who's recording these kills?
Yes, that's the thing. It has to be confirmed kills.
They don't have like a GoPro like slapped on top of the bonnet.
No, but I guess they're quite obvious because they're over battlefields and like you'll see a plane going down. But yeah, you have to confirm them. Although they're counting them themselves, like they're confirmed by other pilots
Who all a lot of the time die as well.
Yeah.
Like if you saw one of your own guys being shot down after he shot 2 or 3 down, you're like,
He took.
kills.
He took. Oh, I thought you'd be like he took down 7, as opposed to.
No, I'd be like, I got all of those, and he didn't get any, and then he died.
I like to think that if we were out there flying together, and then you pulled the wrong handle and crashed into a tree after shitting yourself, I'd be like he took down a couple of. He went out swinging. He hasn't fired.
You would do that. I think you'd take my kills.
He hasn't fired one bullet out of his gun. It seems he was strangling them. Piano wire. He was a flying man. So yeah, I don't know. But then again, this is a different time from today. They had honor and such back then, so I'm guessing these numbers are correct. But a fun fact about Mick Mannock: he was terrified of burning to death and always carried a bullet in the chamber just in case.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not a great way to go, I guess.
I mean, it's you should be afraid of burning to death, but also you could. No, it is definitely better than jumping out and falling to the ground.
Oh yeah, no.
But also, is it?
Well, specifically in his.
I mean, though, for a couple of seconds, but obviously the ending is going to be quite same and maybe worse with falling. But for the first couple of seconds, you're like badass.
Yeah, it's true. Even if you're on fire, even better. Like if your plane goes down, your legs are broken, and you're just slowly burning to death. You're like, yep, wish I had the old bullet now.
You'd think they all would have had it.
Yeah.
And now that you say it, you'd think that it would have been.
Also, they should probably have.
Like, if you've tried the whole smash all the buttons, shit yourself, pull into the thing instead of pulling out. Here's a gun.
They should definitely have a gun anywhere. They're soldiers.
Yeah. I suppose they don't. Yeah, but they used to have a gun when they had to fire at them with pistols. But now they've got guns on the front of the thing.
Yeah, but even if you fall behind enemy lines or whatever, you should have a gun.
You're not making it.
Yeah.
If you fall behind enemy line, you're not.
That is true. Yeah, I don't think there was nothing in the preparation for these.
You're not Owen Wilson.
This is the first Lord of the Rings reference in a while, I think. But when Sam's rationing out the food, he's like, "Looks like we've got enough, Frodo. Enough for what, Sam? Enough for the way home." And then Frodo looks at him like he's a fucking idiot. He's not going home.
Yeah. Not that this the size of you. Nobody don't. We've had enough food for me to get home. Sam.
Yeah. I'm throwing you in the volcano too, buddy.
Yeah, boot him down into the volcano and blame it on Gollum.
But anyway, yeah, Mick Mannock. He took a shine to young George McElroy whenever he came over, possibly because they were both dirty paddies. But when George arrived on base, his flying skills were average at best. He crashed 3 planes within his first month of arriving, but he did survive all those crashes. That's pretty decent.
Yeah, that's it. He didn't die.
Yeah. And under Mannock's guidance, he grew into a more confident and better pilot. He flew with the squadron for weeks without a kill, but eventually, after switching over to a newer model of plane, he started taking down Jerry's, with his first kill coming on December 28th, 1917. They all went back to the barracks and got locked to celebrate, with Mannock playing tunes on his violin and McElroy singing songs from the old country.
Wait, hold on. Violin, not fiddle. This man's not Irish
You're
at all.
right. Actually, yeah. Although it could have been fiddle, because a lot of these accounts are either American or English, and it'd be like the Prime Minister of Ireland. They could have put violin instead of fiddle.
Okay, fair.
But you're right. No, it's a good call. But by early February, McElroy was officially an ace, with his 5 confirmed kills, and his marksmanship earned him the name Deadeye Mac. And then, by mid-February, he was up to 11 kills, so he really took him 2 months to get the first 5, and then really started ramping up then. On the 19th, he was transferred to the 24 Squadron, where he was made patrol leader. He took down another 18 planes before being awarded the Military Cross on the 26th of March. On the 7th of April, he managed to get his wheels stuck in a tree during a landing, crashed his plane, and had to take 2 months out to recover. And while he was in the hospital, they gave him a Military Cross First Bar for being a good lad. When he returned to service in June, he went back to Mick Mannock and the 40th Squadron. And although he was Deadeye Mac to most of the troops, Mannock called him George McIrish McElroy.
McIrish.
So this is definitely in the column.
Boaty McBoatface.
But this is the column that suggests that he's not Irish because he's named this other guy. Maybe he's annoyed that he's called Mick, and he's what about old McIrish here, eh? What if you fucking call him Mick? I want to be Mannock. Or maybe I don't know. But McIrish McElroy doesn't really roll off the tongue.
You say that, but I'm loving it every time you've done it.
Bodie McBoatface. So McIrish McElroy continued on with his plane shooting until July, when he had another close call. His plane caught fire. He tried to put it out with a nosedive spin, but eventually ended up having to crash land and jump clear of the exploding plane. Which the balls to...
Which is... Now that's pretty fun.
Your
cool.
plane catches...
Like, my plane's on fire, I'm going to nosedive to try and put it out. And then if that doesn't work, start spinning around and crash land.
These boys, it was pretty cool. But so around about this time, so I think it might have been that day he went back to the squadron and they were having a going away party for one of the crew. And McElroy caught up with Mannock again. But he noticed that his old friend was withdrawn and depressed. Apparently Mannock's friend and mentor James McCudden had died and had left Mannock in a bit of a shook mental state. After a few drinks, other officers heard Mannock warn McElroy about flying too low in dogfights and in an attempt to try and confirm victories. He said, "Don't throw yourself away. You'll get shot down from the ground." McElroy took it on board, but a week later he got the news that his friend and mentor Mannock was missing in action, presumed dead, after flying too low behind enemy lines, just like he'd warned him not to do.
See, always the way.
Well, apparently few days before...
Easy to give out advice, Kev. Easy to give out advice. Very difficult.
Not to take it.
Not to,
yeah. But apparently a few days before he died, another pilot had told Mannock, "They'll have the red carpet out for you after the war, Mick." And Mannock said to him, "There won't be any after the war for me."
Oh.
Yeah.
Give him that Frodo stare.
Exactly, yeah. So, I know what you're saying. Easy to give advice and not to take it, but it also...
sounded like he was going to kill himself.
Kind of paints it like he was on a death mission.
Yeah, because you think at some point you would have got out sooner than you're like, well, look, once you're over 50, is there really much to do? It's much like women in your pre-marital life and then kills in an airplane on a World War I battlefield. After 50, you're just, come on, lads. It's time to settle down.
Contrary, I think they just get so fucked up. He's basically like, this is it for me. I'm just going out blazing. It's the only thing I know.
Yeah. I've legitimately killed a lot of men. I don't feel good about
Well,
this.
it only seems to rattle him whenever his friend dies. Because I left it out of this, but I'd read other stuff where he, like, I don't know why. Initially, like, he really hated the Germans and he took great relish in, like, killing them. And I guess that's how he got his number up so high. But then... I don't know, all these stories are very anecdotal. It said that he visited the front line and saw all the dead troops, and then all of a sudden he was like, oh shit, this is not cool. But who knows?
Yeah, he's like, these are also people, and also they're fighting English people. Some friends back home, also fighting English people.
Exactly, yeah. And whatever about World War II, World War I was really just like people being churned out to be killed for nothing. Like there's no point to it.
Well, it is. It's backstory for World War II.
It's World War II. You got like the Nazis, the Holocaust. There's like a much more clear good-evil divide. This was just mindless death. But
it's like Batman Begins. You're like, do we really need this? It's like, no, but it's really set it up for the Dark Knight.
You're dead right. Joe Cool's killed Mannock. I don't know.
You don't know enough about Batman.
I know Joe Cool killed his parents.
Joker. Is that was Joker?
Joker.
That's his name?
There's definitely a variation where Joker is an Irish mobster called Joe Kerr.
Joe Kerr and Wayne Bruce.
Is that, I can't remember if someone told me this or I read it somewhere, but they knew a guy called Wayne Bruce and they called him Man Bat.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I don't know where I've heard that as well, but I thought it was from you. It's without doubt, it's the best nickname I've ever heard.
No, the best was the guy, I've definitely read this online, but the guy, he was called Chili because his father was Con Carney. That's just, I mean,
Oh,
yeah, listen,
that's
let's
beautiful.
get back to this war hero. But another friend and something of a protege to McElroy, a 19-year-old called Indra Roy, who was famous for being the only ace of Indian descent, had also died the week before Manak after a short but very impressive record. I think he killed 18 people in the space of maybe a month or two. So his proteges just died, his mentors just died, he's getting it from all angles. Between the two of them, it broke McElroy's heart, but he got back into the skies, and by the end of July, his record was up to 47, a record which was never broken. Not even by himself, because he died. He flew off towards enemy territory on the 31st of July, 1918, and never returned, after also flying low over the enemy base, just like Manak, and that's also how McCudden had died before him. So again, it seems like it was a bit of a death wish.
Okay.
Or maybe it could have also been that they were like so into it, they said, this is all that matters now, and I'm just gonna, like, these are all daring feats to try and kill as many Germans as possible. But yeah, he died a few days afterwards. So a few days after he went missing, a German plane flew over enemy lines and dropped down notes confirming that the great George McElroy was dead. He was the 16th highest ace in World War One and died at the age of 25, 4 months shy of the end of the Great War.
Enough time to kill 50 more Germans.
He could have got up there. I don't know how to phrase that. He was the 16th. He was the 16th highest ranked ace. He was joint with an Australian man called Robert Little. They'd both killed 47. But yeah, the top spot belonged to the Red Baron, Manfred von Richtenhof, who killed 80. And then there was René Fonck.
Why was he called the Red Baron?
Don't know, probably for some cool reason that I probably should have looked up.
I think he was ginger.
Yeah, he was ginger, yeah.
A lot of the time that is the, like the Red Captain. They're like, why is he called that? It was, well, he's captain and he had red hair.
Yeah.
I mean, they've called the Irish guy, like, they're not great with nicknames, let's just
That's
say.
true. Well, yeah, apparently it's because he painted his plane red. And he might have been a baron.
He's what we would have called in our youth a shaper.
Like throwing shapes, peacocking.
Yeah, he's peacocking. He's trying to stand out amongst the crowd. He's like a lad with the first lad wearing a white pair of football boots,
Yeah.
or he has like frosted tips at his hair. He's hoping to get spotted to get down to the Kennedy Cup for his county. Like he's throwing them big shapes.
He took a screwdriver to the muffler of his plane, so it made noises like a rally car, even though it was the Peugeot 207. But yeah, there you go. That's George.
Oh, yeah.
So there's no, at the time of the writing of some of the things I read, there was no memorials to him or anything, because I don't know if they ever found his body or his mentor Manak's, but I think they found two bodies that they assumed were them, and then they're both buried in France. But yeah, by the time of 1918...
Or he went over, and what if he went over and he joined the German side after being on the front lines and seeing like all the atrocities, and he is the Red Baron?
Maybe. Now, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but I'm in. I was really hoping there was a conspiracy that Manak was a spy, because why was he... His story was that he was fixing telephone lines in Turkey at the outbreak of World War One.
He's an Irishman.
He's just over doing a few nixers. We're everywhere, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Like, there's probably there's a couple of hundred lads in Finland right now, like welding together pipes for industry and businesses.
Yeah. You'd be a great spy master. Here's your cover story. You're a welder for industry. You fix telegraphs and ship masts.
Just make sure you don't talk to any man who has ever done manual labour in his life before. You'll be fine.
Yeah, they're all over there and they're all spies. But yeah, so I don't know if there's a memorial to him. I think, have you ever been to the War Memorial Gardens here beside me in Inchicore?
No.
No, we should go there next time we're down. It's one of the nicest parks in Dublin. But it's right beside Phoenix Park, so no one ever goes. But it's class. And there's a memorial in there. I think it's sealed because it referred to it a few times in this stuff, but I've never seen it. There's like a room in the middle of the park anyway that's closed, but apparently all the names of the soldiers who died in World War One and World War Two are written in there, including McElroy's and Kitchener's as well, apparently.
Okay.
That old bastard.
But why is it sealed?
It's sealed probably because of vandalism, because I've been going to that park for a good bit over lockdown, and at some point last year...
Is it a popular riding spot?
No, it's a popular spot for people to like spray paint graffiti all over the memorial, being like, fuck the Brits.
Oh, right. Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
These are Irishmen.
I know, but they're all Irishmen who would have served for England during the war.
Fair.
Well, not really.
Well, not really. No, not really fair at all. But I can, from their point of view, I can see with like wearing those glasses.
So I think that's why it's sealed.
Okay. No more questions from me.
No, there's no memorial for him in Donnybrook or anything. By the time if he had made it home, sentiment or like Irish sentiment for World War One had changed because of 1916.
Fair. Especially also he was there in the 1916. Yeah, you get it. You can get it.
Yeah. But that's pretty much it. The only other note I had was just when I said Donnybrook there again. Did you ever hear the phrase Donnybrook for like a fight? It's a real American thing.
No.
Like a Donnybrook broke out.
That is, I've never heard that, especially not about Donnybrook.
Yeah, well, I think it's from like the Donnybrook Fair.
I was like, Donnybrook broke out. A man pulled out a white handkerchief and then he laid firmly on top of another man's hand and said, "I will meet you."
What are you talking about? A middle-aged woman in a 2021 reg white SUV honked at someone on a bike. It was a pure Donnybrook.
A knock. I like the word a knock. Or
yeah.
Straightener.
A bit of chin music.
Oh.
That's great.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell that means. But yeah. Yeah, there you go.
I just know it from wrestling, from Shawn Michaels.
Give him
got sweet chin music.
Give him a bit of chin music.
In the head.
Well, yeah, there's an episode about World War One.
Very good.
Sure, we'll talk to you next week. Good luck.
Shafter.